Jill. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I just want to say, it's been awesome knowing you for the period of time and that I've known you and your husband, Tony. Anybody that is watching this for the first time that doesn't know who you are, can you just kind of tell us who you are and kind of like what you're up to? Doesn't necessarily, you don't have to give locations. We don't ever really talk about where we are on the planet, but just kind of give us a little more insights as to who Jill is.
Jill Hall. You've already covered that. I'm a real estate agent. I have been selling real estate for probably, I don't know, I'm going to guess, but it's been a long time, probably about over 30 years.
Wow.
We have 2 children, and our son is married and we have a grandchild. So yeah, and I do spend a lot of time researching things that I'm interested in, that I think that's where we've we were connected before that, and
we had mutual friend groups, and yes. You and my wife have. She loves you beyond belief, and she's like always looking forward to the next hike that she does with you.
Yeah, I enjoy her a lot, and so anyway, yeah, we were familiar with one another, and we just kind of, I think our posts on Facebook sometimes, yours resonate with me. And so, anyway, that I guess that's why kind of we ended up sitting here in this room talking to each other. So
yeah, I kind of tricked Jill a little bit. I just said, let's just sit down and have a conversation. And, I think you probably said, well, don't we text back and forth on Facebook? So, I appreciate you coming in and just being open to this. And again, this may never air. Another person may never see it besides you and me, but, I do want to kind of talk about some of the things that we've talked about. I know you're passionate about several things, and can you kind of just give me you said it to me, but I think the story resonates pretty well as to why you do things like what we're talking about today that aren't real estate related. Kind of talk about what that is and how you ended up there, and like where it started and what made you passionate about it, and why do you do it every day, and why do you face your fear or potential of saying something or sending a message to me because you didn't need to do that? Like what drives you to do that?
Well, I don't think I always had it dialed in as much or understood why, as I mentioned to Chad, and we decided I'm more of a critical thinker, but I'm really stubborn and I have to prove things for myself. So, which I think I is a good thing. But one of the biggest reasons, I think, when I really think about what drives me to do it, and why it's so interesting, and why I don't stop when a lot of other people would be like, gosh, that would drive me crazy to do that much research. I was explaining, I think it's really, whenever I'm afraid of something, I feel like I need to find a solution so I won't be afraid. And one of the biggest things that has happened in my life that's probably driven me to research is my mother passed away when she was 46, and she had lung cancer, and I just remember at that time I was 25 years old, and there was no place to really research, but innately I knew that the care and treatment that she was getting, that there was, I'm not going to say that there wasn't anything good about it, because I don't really know that for sure, but I just felt like there had to be a better way. And I felt so powerless not being able to, because I wanted to figure out a better diet, a better way for her to take care of herself. And there weren't any options. And so after she passed away, I think that I had this fear that, that's going to happen to me sometime, because that's what, you hear all this about genetics and blah, blah, blah. And I felt like I got to make sure that I have better answers if that ever happens. And so that kind of is probably where it all started. And then it just kind of went from there with, so.
So we're not going to talk about age here, but so you've been doing research for a long time. What was the cancer diagnosis and you trying to help your mom? Was that where you started researching things, or like, did it go back further than that with other things that you were interested in?
Well, I'm sure it did go back further than that. I've always been very interested in psychology and the human nature, and trying to understand that. And I think also I don't think I know, it stems from what a lot of people would like to refer to as sensitive, like a sensitive nature.
Empathic, maybe a little bit.
Definitely.
Okay.
Very empathic.
Okay.
And just like I like to refer to it as a hard feeler. I think I can feel like just about like the energy. I just feel it. It's like, and I've had to learn over time how to dance with that. Otherwise it'll take you down to your knees if you're not, if you don't. So I think that's probably, really where it originated.
You mentioned, I don't know if you said, I don't like being afraid, or you say when I'm afraid. What kind of things, because I think this really pointed to the bigger discussions I'm having with people, and our weaknesses as people and a society is we are fearful of things, and we're divided on everything, really, and going back, I really talk about the pandemic a lot, and people that agree with most everything, even politics, and are united around most things and can talk about things. Like when COVID hit, and it was, everybody got fearful, and all of the unity that we had was basically stripped down to, are you sick? If you're sick, get away from me. Or once the vaccine came into play, you have to get the vaccine or you're not safe and you don't care about me, get away from me. And you can, there's been families that have been divided over that issue just because they're so afraid. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that I'm dealing with a lot in this mission, is trying to, first of all, have a more uplifting vision of where we're going as a society, because I have young kids, and I think you said you have young grandkids, and I'm trying to see and be empathic what it might look like in 20 years if we kind of keep doing the same things that we've been doing and stay on these paths that we're on. Because typically as things go, it's ebb and flow, right? I mean, we go through good times and we go through bad times. And it seems like, though, to me, and maybe you as an empathic person and somebody that studies behavior and sounds like, maybe sociology a little bit too, it's like I've sensed a downward trend for quite a while, just meaning in overall humanity getting along and being open to hearing other things and trying to make things better together. It's like we all become little focused on our devices and our own worlds and tuning everything out. And then when COVID hit, it's like it snapped everybody into that. Like our kids that were in school and spending time together and having those natural relationships, it just stopped for however many. And we don't know what that's going to do to people, for generations to come. But I do know our apparatus and our mechanisms of thinking that control public health aren't having the conversations at all. If they are, I don't see them, and I don't know how those are, how are we supposed to be talking to our kids about things and giving them a more positive vision for the future and explaining to them as best we can what happened. And I'm trying to see the world through their eyes, I think, is about as best as I can put it. Mm-hmm. And I think your insights may not be the same. Maybe you're not looking at it through the same lens, though I'm sure I follow you on Facebook, and I know your trips to see your grandkid, and that kid is something else. Wow. But I guess to have a question here, why, when you're afraid, what does that look like? How does that resonate with you? And then what is your process of trying to be less afraid and or fix the problem. I think so when you said fix the problem, that's what I've always done, and it's something that annoys my wife. Like she gives me a problem. I used when I was really young in the relationship, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, and blah blah blah. She's like, I just want you to listen,
Mm-hmm.
And so where's the line there? But anyway, so when you're afraid, kind of what do you go through as far as a process, and then how do you index that away maybe and feel like you're okay, I got that covered for now,
Mm-hmm.
and then come back to that.
So I guess a good example would be like going back to COVID and everything that you're talking about. Honestly, I wasn't afraid in the beginning. Like I wasn't. I mean, Tony, I was afraid. I didn't want to. My empathic nature told me if you get it, you don't want to give it to anyone else, because I didn't understand, and I still don't fully understand it. But I was concerned for other people, but I was not really concerned for myself, and it didn't cause fear at that point. And then it kept going on, and the point that I still made my decision about how to deal with it based in what was available and what everyone else was doing. I made my own personal choice and felt good about that. But as it continued on, I was like, I need to be sure I feel good about that. So I kept doing more and more research and listening to. I spent hours. I mean, it was an obsession, but it was necessary for me to find peace with my decision and to be able to offer it to my family with them doing their own research as well and making their own decisions. So so I wasn't afraid, and I still decided my decision's the best, like for me, what to do, how to handle it. And then we had a good friend who passed away with it. And when that happened, I was like, wow, because he didn't really fit the criteria of the people that were passing away with it. So I thought, okay, that's a little scary. I still didn't know that I wanted to change my decision about how to prevent it, but I was like, I need to know what to do if I were to get it, or if anyone in my family were to get it, if they want to utilize the research that I do. And so I just thought, how can I get rid of this fear? And so I found a protocol that I felt really good with, and I put it in right. I typed it up on the computer. I added links to it, to everything, found options for medications and how to get those. And I emailed it out to all the people that in my family and anyone else that had asked me for it, that I had mentioned that I was doing it. And I said, this is not me telling you to do this. It's an option if you would find yourself in that space. And I also said, if you need an advocate, I'll be happy to help, to do that for you. And that just, it removed the fear. I was like, okay, now I don't have, because what's going to happen is going to happen, right? I mean, God is really ultimately in charge, but he also wants that, that saying is he wants us to pray like it's up to him, but then work like it's up to us. And so I was doing my part, and that, I guess that's one example, but I have so many other examples of things that I've dealt with personally in my life, or people that I love and care about have dealt with, and I've wanted them to have all the best options and not just be thrown into a system I find very that it creates dependence and takes away your power. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that there aren't good things to offer, but we need to be able to ask questions and not feel like it's our body, it's our right, and we know it better than anyone. And so
you mentioned protocols, and I think we talked about the protocols. We don't necessarily have to mention that. We'll put in the show notes what the protocols were. Why did you settle on the protocols that you settled on? you obviously, with those protocols, I want to say you're seeking something that's parallel to what the standard allowed narrative and protocol was, as far as how we were supposed to treat ourselves and our loved ones. So, like, what was your process of finding those protocols, or who were you looking to? Maybe you can mention a person or two. You don't have to mention a person or two, but like, why did you find that? And then how did you keep testing it to make sure that it was working, or, that it was something that you knew you wanted to continue following that?
Well, and I probably, once I do all that research, I kind of like, I could have told you the names of all the people the doctors that that I was following. And a lot of them were, most of them I think were mainstream doctors. So it wasn't
Robert Malone or Peter McCullough.
Peter McCullough was a big one.
Yeah, Peter McCullough. And they attempted to cancel him. So, one of the things I want to touch on is the captured system aspect of this thing. And, the think tank concept kind of revolves around putting people like Malone and McCullough in there, because those people risked everything very early on. Their practice, their license, if they had YouTube channels and they had income coming, and any of the platforms that choose to censor people for saying something outside of the approved narrative. Those are the people, like I've learned recently, and just in the last few years more, to the people, seemingly to me, that get called out quickly by the unknown mass of media or whatever that says, don't trust these people, they're conspiracy theorists, or they don't know what they're talking about. Well, as far as I know, Dr. Peter McCullough is probably the most documented medical doctor that we have on the planet, meaning he's written papers, peer-reviewed, never had a glitch, never had a whatever, and then all of a sudden, he just got things real wrong, or so they want you to believe. And so the whole thing with me, with this platform that we're talking about trying to create, is you can't listen to the approved narrative, because it changes, and it's a cycle. They use it for whatever they use it for. We don't have to get into the why they do it necessarily. I just want something that mutes that noise out. It's basically, you want to know what's truth. You want to know what's not. What's less true. I don't want to say whose fault it is. I don't really care, but I do want to know that if I don't want to watch this particular channel or hear the person that's lied multiple times lie more, I want a mute button. And that's what I think this is. But I think one of the concepts that we've been working on is captured systems. And it's not something we created. A lot of the influencers and podcasters and doctors and scientists that are raising red flags about what happened over the last few years are talking about captured institutions, meaning for whatever reason, and I think you touched on this in one of your messages to me, so I'll get back around to a question to you. You said something to the effect of these I think you talked about is psychiatry from a psychiatry perspective, but it's like the people that work in those fields aren't bad people. And because they're saying something that you don't necessarily agree with doesn't make them a bad person. And maybe they're right, maybe you're wrong. Or maybe you're wrong, maybe they're right. But the captured part of it is people with that authority, to me, use that to gain trust. And then what happened for me, and the reason why I wanted to tune all of it out, every channel, anybody that's lied, is because if you use your position of authority to try to tell me something that's not true, I think I'm like you a lot of ways as far as thinking critically and having a good BS meter. And so I can tune you out. The problem that we have is a general weakness of people and humanity is most people just want to go along and get along, and they were taught from a very early age to trust authority and to sit down and listen and don't speak unless you're spoken to, or don't ask questions unless I give you the opportunity. And that's actually the opposite of how everyone should be acting. And so turning it back around to you, the captured systems aspect, and we can get out of COVID because I know that's not I kind of feel like we're on the same page there with where we are. So let's turn it back around to, you've mentioned psychology, psychiatry as one of your passions. Like, what has caused you to be passionate about that, and what could we explore? Because I'm going to be bringing in some psychiatrists, and there's some questions that I think we need to ask, and I want them to be the best questions. So the goal for this is, where are you with it? That way I can maybe find where I can be with it coming into a conversation, if that makes sense.
Well, I think there's just what I've learned through, and I don't know if you want me to name names, but there's a psychiatrist.
Let's keep names out of it for now.
Okay. In particular, and she's not local or anything, but anyway, I've read her books and I've learned a lot. I learned a lot from her, but I already innately felt this way, and it's just always good to have confirmation from somebody who is actually, I mean, she's board certified, Harvard trained.
Okay. Now that you gave me her qualification, go ahead and say she's published and she's got books and everything, so we can mention her. I did if it was someone local.
No, it's not anyone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's Dr. Kelly Brogan,
okay.
and she started out practicing. She started out just practicing traditionally, and things happened over time that. Actually, she ended up herself with something that she had to deal with, and asked herself the question, would I treat myself the same way that, like, if I had a patient come in and I prescribed treatment for them, would I treat myself that way? And her answer was no. So she went from there.
That'll change your day.
Yeah.
And the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she did. It was her whole life turned upside down as a result of it, because she could no longer, with a clear conscience, practice that way after she asked herself that question and said she wouldn't do it for herself. And so she's no longer prescribing. And I don't want to, I mean, I have a lot of opinions, but that's not what this is about. And I don't want to say that I don't believe that that no one should take medication. I don't, that's not my, place to say anything like that. But what I do know is that she showed me a lot of how that field of psychiatry keeps people stuck and dependent, and there's definitely a better way. And I think that you had sent me some information on something about a lot of different factors that people aren't aware of or aren't recognized in mainstream, that I believe that those things are very, I don't know, like you want me to mention it, but like the MTHFR gene, that we've all got the potential for that gene to turn on, but some of it turns on, and in some of us it doesn't. And there's a whole reason behind that, which would take me a long time to go into.
Well, no, I mean, me and my buddy, Dr. Roy, were just talking about that. And there's one test that you can take that you only have to take once in your lifetime that shows exactly where the problems will arise in your life, which is pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty expensive test. And me and Dr. Roy are going back and forth on the best way to roll that out to people to test these things on their own. But Gary Brecka talks about one, and his test is like $600 or $700. And Dr. Roy was like, you don't need to spend that amount of money. You can do 23andMe, which got me into the truth-seeking apparatus and the protecting, first do no harm. Who owns that data? That's 23andMe. If you do this genetic test, is it going to get turned over to the Chinese or to some other group of people that I don't want having my genetic family DNA? Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, let's do some research on that before we really figure it out. But that's something that we can talk about further. I don't want to go further down the rabbit hole, except to say there's a one time that, I think if you're in a family and you got 4 people and you could take one test and know where your weaknesses are going to be potentially for a lot of different things going on, who wouldn't want to, talk about preventative medicine. Mm-hmm. If you don't have to worry about these other genes because there's no problems, you don't have double recessive on your mom's and dad's side, which is what really causes a lot of the problems. Mm-hmm. If you got a recessive gene, that's when the MTHFR, I think is what it is. That's when there's a problem. If you got a recessive gene on your mom's and your dad's side, then the things that happen are more likely to happen if you have that going on, based on what me and Dr. Roy got to. So I don't know where I was going with that question, and it wasn't really even a question.
Well, I think that you were talking about the psychiatry aspect of it, and I learned from her, which I think we all innately know these things, and then we find that teacher that it resonates with us, and it did. Like everything she taught, I was like, I knew that, but I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't have any initials behind my name, but so maybe I do, like for real estate, but anyway, not for the psychiatry. But anyway, I was like, I knew that. Thank you, because she was. There's no way anyone would have convinced her of this before she learned it on her own. And it's as simple for some people as just changing your diet, like that, but then everybody's got different levels. There's a spectrum. And so, but there's like blood sugar, there's just so many different things that can make a difference in your emotional state. I know that I'm not saying people shouldn't take medication, but we need this mixed in with it. We need for our people, the people that are in that field, to understand this aspect and to utilize everything before they put someone on a medication and try to help them. And, there's always those people that are not going to do it no matter what. They're going to, keep eating the same way, and they're going to keep living the same way. And then, that's probably when medication is definitely the best option.
And they should have the option to do that. I mean, their freedom of choice is, if that's the way they want to live, and they know that's their outcome's probably going to be, they're going to be relying on medication for the rest of their life. Well, that's their should be willing to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm with you, and what we're saying right now will be frictional, and it's
I know that's the
it's frictional just because certain people are traditional, and this is why I think the captured system aspect is important, because when you're in a captured system, you are a traditional medicine person, and they kind of make fun of the holistic side of things, and there's no marriage between the two of them. They act like functional medicine is the only way to go. Traditional medicine is the only way to go, even though holistic Eastern medicine has been around for much, much longer. And I'm on board with you, just as, each person, first of all, if they want to go the traditional route, first go, just do you. But whenever those people also happen to be ones that are potentially teaching my children how to live and making suggestions and recommendations, that's where it gets a little slippery for me, because is it my job to teach my kids and whatever, this is my concept of medicine? Or wouldn't it make more sense if holistic, like people with open minds on both sides, could come together in a think tank and come to understandings where they agree on things, and where they disagree and why they disagree, and then build that out. And so be in a think tank and have all sides show, all sides are represented, and then create data sets using artificial intelligence and the things that we're going to have at our disposal. I feel like we have to marry the two. And you see holistic functional medicine people, and you have traditional medicine people. And it's like, where's the hybrid? And I think Dr. Roy, I think is pretty close to hybrid, who I've been sitting down with. He's really open-minded. He's obviously more traditional. That's the way he's been born and raised. But he's looking to AI for advancements. And so I think he doesn't really even know what that fully means yet, because AI is still fully developing. But so let's lean into the friction a little bit. And it's interesting because this Dr. Kelly Brogan, it sounds like she was a traditional psychiatrist, and she would treat people accordingly. And that means getting people on a prescription thing and doing ongoing therapy to talk them out of. That's that part I don't really understand about medication and psychiatry.
She's a psychiatrist, so she didn't do the talk therapy. She did the prescribing. And she was prescribing to pregnant women.
Okay.
And she read the book by Robert Whitaker, Anatomy of an Epidemic, and that was also what, like, she said once, she saw she could not unsee that. And
Anatomy of a what?
Of an epidemic.
Okay.
And she stopped prescribing. But I think that one of the things that I respect so much about her is she's not telling people don't take it. She's just saying, I don't feel good prescribing anymore. But her biggest message is, and you had just touched on it, informed consent, like being educated and knowing everything. And that's not just saying, oh, go pick your prescription up and there's going to be like a whole list of stuff on the package that might happen. Read that. And if you're not okay with it, then maybe you shouldn't take it. It's talking to them about, like, knowing yourself, what, as the prescribing physician, what could happen, and pointing that out to the patient so that they can then make their decision if it's right for them. And she doesn't say this, but sometimes I feel like, because she just doesn't prescribe anymore. But I feel like sometimes if it's the right medication and you have all the knowledge of what could happen and what to look for, that maybe sometimes for a short period of time, it is the right thing for you, and you just have to weigh that. And the informed consent aspect of it is a huge piece. But if you think, anytime I've ever gone to the doctor and they've prescribed something, I've never been told, well, you should watch for these side effects. And I like pick it up and look at the side effects. And I mean, in my case, I don't ever take it after that. But
or if you watch one of the ads on television,
yes,
and they have this real fast thing that says this is how good your life will be after you take it, and then they do this about, like, it gives you 20 different things, and you could potentially die. So then you got to start taking medications to get rid of all those things.
Exactly.
So it's like it's so comedic that they, we're one of the only 2 countries on the planet that allows pharma to advertise on television anyway, which to me is alarming. But but it is interesting. It's like, so, like, we've somehow been trained to not question and not really want to know the details behind these things that are prescribed to us, because the doctor is an authority and they went to school for this, and apparently they know better, and this is just the path you're going to take. It seems like it's a predetermined path of, like, okay, so you're going to put me on this. How many people ask, you're going to put me on this, and how long do I have to stay on it, and what's my ramp?
Nobody does.
Well, they don't talk about it, and it's because it's a plug and play. And you just rinse, repeat, do it all over again, all the time, forever. And so, like, that's in a truth-seeking apparatus to me is, let's get a group of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people that are taking this traditional path, one that's taking pure holistic, and let's get a group that's doing some combination thereof, where you got them bouncing back and forth. Give us the results. There's no reason, no way that we should not be able to do that. And we should have access to that. So continue on. If you had more of a point to make there with where you wanted to go with her.
Well, the only thing I think I wanted to add is that you had touched on it. Like, I don't believe, like, I've been through so many different emotions in that area of just traditional medicine. I've been, like, I guess, in places where I was angry and, like, believe that, like, even angry at the doctors that, that you go to. And what I know now is that it really isn't. Like, I think most of these people, they just go and they're trained, and it's the way they're trained, and they don't, and they don't question it. They do what they're trained to do. And there's a quote that I don't know who it's by, but it's hard to teach a man otherwise when his livelihood depends on it. And I think that that's what happens. Like, what are you going to do? Like, if you go into school to be a doctor, or you went to school to be a dentist, or what, and you've got all these years of, school behind you, and this is what you do. What are you what are you going to do? And you don't have time to go do a bunch of research. You're just trying to keep your practice going. And, you know, so I just want to make sure that I state that, because I really don't blame the doctors.
But that doesn't mean sometimes that they're not wrong.
No, absolutely.
And it's, I guess at some point, not their fault that they're not wrong, except for, like, you look at somebody like a Dr. Brogan, who, once you put yourself in the shoes of your patient, you know, and you're considering first do no harm, and you start off as a practicing beginner in your field, and you're basically doing what you've learned is the right way to do it, and through your practice of preparing to have your own practice, you know, that period of time that you have to do that, at some point, whenever enough things pile up and you see enough bad results, or you're questioning it all, the problem I would have is if a doctor just turned that questioning thing off and didn't look at things like, and I really dealt with this, and it's problematic because I have some really good friends that are doctors, and going into the pandemic, I was asking questions, and I had no thought of starting a podcast at that time. It wasn't. I had a digital marketing company, had been so for like 15 years. Things were going great. Never did podcasting come into my mindset, and so I don't want to pretend, or I don't want them to feel like I was asking those questions as a gotcha for later. But it's like they all made recommendations about the vaccine path, and that's the only way that we're going to blah, 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 and that's the only way that we're going to fix this. And they were just basically parroting what everything you heard on the news was parroting. And I understand that. I mean, like, if it truly is an epidemic and they feel this is the only way we're going to get out of it because that's what they're being told, you can't be mad at somebody for doing that. And I'm not mad about what they didn't do, but at some point, if they want to have trust in the system again, and they want people to look to them the next time something goes wrong, there has to be some reconciliation of some point. You know, there's got to be I was wrong, or this path was wrong, and I spotted it along the way, and I acknowledge that now it's not what I would do if I had to do over again, or it was, like, own it. But instead it just goes into this veil of silence, and that's not the way you earn back trust.
No, you're right.
And so it's not comfortable to talk about. And I think you've talked about gaslighting. You've talked about, you know, being, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you feel afraid of some conflict along the way, or putting something out there that, I don't know. I won't try to speak for you, but I will try to, like, get to the heart of what that means. It's like, you don't have to ask those questions and put yourself or them in a compromising position if they are just quick to say, I was wrong, or this wasn't right, or whatever. And you're like, shoot, wow, I'm glad they saw that. Now I can go back to trusting them as I used to, because I know the next time they see something or hear something or believe something, that I'm going to be one of the first people to hear it, right? Because they're going to do it again. That's trust. Right. If I take something from you that's not mine, or I hurt you in some way, the faster I can say, I did that, I was wrong, and or apologize and say, man, I this was going on, this is why it happened, I promise to never do that again. Then you'll be like, okay, well, I trust you a little less now, but I give you another shot. You know, that's how healing works. That's how whatever. And I just feel like our whole society now has this thing that nobody wants to talk about, and it's deeply rooted in trust. I'm seeing it in kids' faces. I'm around sporting events and I do some coaching, and it's like the kids are expressing things that I know their parents are feeling, and nobody knows how to talk about it. There's no conversations going on. So from a psychiatric perspective, to me, this is one of the things that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, honestly, is I want my kids to have it better than I had it. And meaning in a very fine-tuned moment, I don't want the events that have happened for the last 3 years to be something that we replicate, if at all possible. And part of learning is learning what we've done wrong and fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to what you said,
Mm-hmm.
like when I'm afraid, I want to solve it, so I fix it. I just don't have to worry about it anymore. And I know it's never going to be fixed, but the conversations are what really get to the heart of it. And if enough people hear this conversation and know that we're just two normal people, we're not a Joe Rogan or a Peter McCullough or a Dr. Kelly Brogan, but we're two people that are sitting here having some concern about the things that are going on around us. And up to this point, as far as I know, you haven't really been involved in any political action or any going out there and speaking up for any big thing, but you are someone who cares about things deeply and you want to solve it. So it's like, we need more people who are afraid, or not even afraid is the word I want to use, haven't been compelled or seen the opportunity to step forward and to help humanity more. Like step outside of our own family. Let's bring our community back into this again. Let's start talking about this. I mean, let's be therapeutic with it. Let's not only that, but we're here, and you could argue whether we're going a little up or a little down, but how can we be much, much better, and where our kids have something to look forward to and not be afraid of. That's a lot, and there's no question there. But I feel like I want to evolve that into how can we take these conversations and use this apparatus concept to be a place that people can trust and go to. That way we don't have to have all the conversations all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And I strongly recommend whoever can listen to as many podcasts as you can that are talking about these things to do it. But most people don't have time.
Mm-hmm. No.
You know, you're working, selling real estate, working however many hours a day, kids, family, activities, social life, spouse that you need to interact with every once in a while. It's like, so creating something that doesn't require a lot of time, but compiles all these conversations into a knowledge base of this is the way that I want to be moving forward compared to the way that I used to be. Mm-hmm. So that was a soapbox, and I don't know where I'm going with it. You also are very passionate about holistic dentistry.
I am.
From what I understand.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's a very good correlation between why you're interested in psychiatry and holistic dentistry. And can you tell me where that came from? Or
well, I think it goes back to the whole subject about methylation with the MTHFR gene. I feel like that not of course, like I said, everyone has that gene, whether it's turned on or not, depends on a variety of factors. And if it is turned on in you, if you do have the life experiences that cause it to be turned on, then you're going to be a lot more vulnerable to things like environmental toxins than people who don't have that turned on. And so personally, I mean, I know that I have that going on and have been trying for a number of years to figure out why I might be more sensitive. I hate that word, and I hate when people say that to me, because I think they see it in a different way than I do. I see it as like a superpower. I see it as the person who everyone's being affected by it, but the person who feels it is alerting you, almost like a canary in a coal mine. They're alerting you to the fact that maybe you shouldn't be doing that either, or breathing that, or whatever. And so anyway, I found out that I've had some dental work done, that I have quite a bit of metal that in my mouth, and that through a test that I did to be sure that when I replace it or change it, that I'm very highly sensitive to every everything, every bit of it. And I have been ever since I got it done, apparently. So anyway, that's a whole nother podcast. But I would just, say that it is, not good to have mercury in your mouth. That's definitely like something that everyone should know, those silver fillings that you think are just silver or not. And it's not good for your health, and it's not good for your health physically or emotionally. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, that's like, there's so much to unpack in that whole conversation.
Let's dig into a little bit. Cause I know you've done research, and part of the goal of this, Jill, is to take the things that we think we know and kind of put them out there a little bit in this think tank, right? And then people that don't agree with that can say, well, that's not exactly true because of this or this. And then you may or may not agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you might do a little more research, and you may be open to, well, maybe there's something going on there. So it may evolve your knowledge bank to at least being open to something that like, well, could be maybe something else. Because I think that's what we always have to do. We always have to be open to potentially being wrong, even though we're all very proud and like, you don't know the amount of hours that I've spent on this. And I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about, But so, yeah, because my wife had something very similar happen to her, and we haven't really even started talking about this whole conversation yet. But she had a medical device she has something put into her of a foreign substance that's a metal, and she's responded very poorly to that. And there was a lawsuit, not hers, but a bigger one that did impact her. So I have a feeling you probably share that, and I think she also has a lot of cavities. But so it's really interesting to me again. So like I'm like you, for my own people in my tribe, my loved ones, I would really like to know these things prior to sticking them in my mouth. And I know whenever, old school dentistry, there was no testing, there was no long-term things about what that in your mouth could do, what were the negative side effects of that. I think we just did it, right? Are there studies out there that have talked about it for a long time about what putting mercury or other things in your mouth? I don't know. You probably know more about that than I do, but I feel like as far as if it's something that's well known, the field of dentistry should address that firstly, right? It's not holistic. If it's just factual, even if it's a small percentage of people, I feel like it's something that should be an education process, meaning if you had these things, it could cause these problems. If it has caused those problems, here's some ways to offset that in some way, whether it's removing those and putting something else in their place, or whether there's some kind of treatments that can remove the toxicity. Because me and Dr. Roy got into this because he believes I've had gastrointestinal issues for my entire life. And so whenever the Gary Brecka conversation came up and I shared that and you reached out to me, a lot of the things that he said, like in one group, was like, okay, there I am. There I am sitting firmly in that group. I mean, everything was almost exactly the same. And so what do I do with that information? How do I fix it? I can try to fix that. And I think me and Dr. Roy are on a path of I'm going to be a test dummy in some way, shape, or form. We may have that conversation with him. Like, how can we take this information? And yes, it's a small random sample test, but it's still not nothing. And if 100 people or 1,000 people all take the thing and we all can talk our way through it, then this truth-seeking apparatus can say, here's what 1,000 people did, and here was the results, and here's how they felt differently, and here's what they found out during the way. That's how these different things are going to solve themselves. It's not waiting for a pharmaceutical company or a dentistry institutional field to all of a sudden want to bring up old bad news, because what's their reward for doing that? I mean, they probably run the risk of getting lawsuits and having to fix things that have been done a long time. I mean, it just opens you up to so many potential problems that I understand from an attorney and an insurance perspective, you don't really want to go there. But that shouldn't stop us from doing that outside of that, paralleling that and fixing the problem ourselves instead of waiting for somebody else out there to solve it and for it just trickle down to us. I mean, these are the conversations I think to fix that. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm ranting a lot.
No.
I think this is more of a conversation. People ask like, are you bringing in experts and asking them questions and letting them think? I'm like, it's more of a conversation. Mm-hmm. It's more of like, here's how I feel about it. Here's what do you think about what I just said? You know, that's kind of where I think this goes. But so what is your path knowing that you have mercury in your mouth? What is what are you thinking you can do without taking them out? Or can you do anything to mitigate problems or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is like the most recent thing that I've gotten involved in researching, and it's been the most powerful thing to this point to help me to get to a way better place with some of the things that I personally have dealt with, and it's so mind-blowing to me that I never knew it. Like I never realized, I never even thought about it. Like, I mean, I think I have intuitively, but never enough to like, what do you know,
take
like,
action.
Oh, let's go like just drill your mouth out, you know, like you're not, that's a big.
Doesn't sound fun.
No, it's not. And also I will have to tell you that as to my knowledge, there's no dentist in Evansville that can really take them out safely because, I mean, mercury is poison and it really should not be in our mouths. And what I found when I started to, I never even really knew for sure I had it. And people don't know that they have it under crowns. They have it because if you think about it, if you have a crown, you probably had a filling before you got the crown. They don't, you just don't even, and I think it's like such an undertaking that you just don't go there.
Are they still using mercury?
Yes.
So nothing has changed.
Not every dentist will use it.
So I thought there was some kind of a white material. I think
there is, but it's
a composite.
It's more expensive.
Yeah. I don't know that I have any mercury in my mouth. I think I only had one cavity in my life.
Oh, well, you probably don't.
Maybe two.
Because neither one of my children have any.
So I think, if anything, we can raise a red flag and say, before you get a cavity filled or a crown put on, consider these things. I mean, everyone should be having those conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And back to what I said is like, there could be like 10 people that, and I just don't think it's good to put mercury in your mouth no matter what, but there could be 10 people that have like dental work done and have metal put in their mouth, and it won't bother them because their body is capable of metabolizing whatever the toxins are that are coming with that. But then if you have a person who their MTHFR gene has turned on, that person is going to be affected by it. So if you are a person that tends toward, I guess for lack of like a better way to explain it, I would say like an autoimmune type situation, which there's so many things that fall under autoimmune, like even your gastrointestinal issues, I'm sure fall under that. So if you're a person that leans toward that and you struggle with off and on those types of things, you really should get that. It's called Biocomp, and it's a test that you can have done. It's not, the unfortunate thing about all this is it's not cheap. So I think the test was like $500 to find out what metals I was highly sensitive to and which ones I should not, have in my mouth. But that would be the ideal way for anyone to get any dental work done, because then they can avoid putting something in their body that they're not going, that their body's not going to reject, basically.
And so the instant kickback you're going to get from that, especially because we're doing pretty well as a country. We're the most wealthy. We are the top 1% of the world. In America, even the poor people here are richer than most people around the world, right? Mm-hmm. That's the reality of it. But still, spending $500 just before doing anything, like you're going to get, oh man, that's a lot of money. Well, I feel like it's important to have the conversation and talk about what is that $500 worth to you if you're going to put give us a list of the materials that people can have sensitivity to, and what do those things flesh out to looking like in their lifetime? How much pain, suffering, dis-ease does that cause? Or have this test and know that you should absolutely not do those things because you're going to turn on a gene that's going to actuate all these other symptoms and side effects that you have to deal with for the rest of your life, and there's no undoing them.
Yeah.
You can take another medication and maybe make your gastrointestinal issues less shitty, but they're still bad, right?
I do want to say that there is a way to undo them.
Okay.
There is.
Well, I won't, you're not a doctor, but I want to hear what the researcher has to say so we can take that and dissect it and put it out there.
Yeah. I mean, like, I wouldn't be prepared to like sit and have a conversation about it right now. I just don't want people to think that they can't undo that. I believe firmly that you can. And I believe that
just undo what?
Undo the aspect of like that you can, your DNA can, it can change back to, I mean, you can support it in a way that you can get rid of it. You can. I mean, it may still be somewhat there, but you can do a lot to reverse it. And I just want people to know that, because that's the part about the doctor that I have so much of a problem with, because during this whole process, I've been to a doctor who diagnosed me with Hashimoto's, which is like, now I understand it's like a bucket. If you don't know what it is, throw it in the Hashimoto's bucket. So, but I looked at her. It's you're related to your thyroid, but it's really an autoimmune condition that like attacks your thyroid. That's really scary, right? So just hearing that, and I asked the doctor, because it wasn't, according to her, bad yet. Well, is there something I can do for it? And she said, no, it's not yet. Yours isn't that bad. You're not really having symptoms, which was right after I told her I was having symptoms. But anyway, so basically she said, no, you can't do anything for it. If you go on the medication, then you have to stay on it for a lifetime. And you don't want to do that until you really have to. And so I just listened and left and did what I always do. And I did my own research. And I basically went down a path of like reversing it. But I've even learned more of how, like, I did that kind of the hard way because I didn't know what to do and I was just learning. But I just want people to know that there's things, your body wants to heal. I mean, it wants to heal. It's its job. That's the way we were created, is to like be healthy. And if we support it, it will heal. It will heal. And the most important thing is supporting your nervous system, because everything depends on that, and you don't want to go to the doctor and have them tell you that, that you have something that can't be reversed, because that's going to immediately send you into a fight flight state, which is going to avoid your body. You heal when you're in rest digest. So I just want people to know that.
Well, yeah, I think you and I are on the exact same page here. And I don't know where I am on the scale of being exactly on the same page as you, but I'm somewhere on the sliding scale, as I believe anyone that's really starting to address things from the beginning is going to come in at a certain level of understanding and then move
exactly
either way, right? And and some people just stop because the symptom goes away, or they just get busy with life or whatever. People like you and me will nerd out on something and never let it die until we figure it out. And so I think anyone that's really interested in this MTHFR gene turning on, again, how you and I started talking leading up to today, this showing and having a meeting today, was I had listened to the podcast with Gary Brecka and Gary Brecka and Dana White did one together, but Dana White had been on with somebody else and alluded to this thing. And he had, based on what I understand, Dana White, and for those who don't know who that is, he's the CEO of Ultimate Fighter Championship, UFC. And based on what I'm understanding, he's like 54 years old and was near death for all intents and purposes. I mean, he super, super high blood pressure, stroke level blood pressure, been on heart medication, been on all kinds of different things. And Brecka basically put him on a 10-week protocol. He did the genetic test, found out some things that were not right, put him on specific things that he needed to take to fix those genes, and then put him on a very restrictive diet, meaning he said, I'm going to send you to the grocery store with a list. You can't eat anything except for what's on the list. And I don't know what the timeline was on him getting completely to where he is now. But what Brecca said was, if you don't feel way better in 7 days, then come talk to me. And I'll say I'm wrong, and I'll eat crow or whatever it is that whatever. I think with Dana White, you better have some pretty good, but got some splaining to do if it's not working out right. But so what Dana White basically said in this interview with Brecca, and I recommend you see that. And Dana White's been on several podcasts here lately, and whether you find UFC interesting or not, he's one of those guys that he's got escape velocity. Let's just say that. He's got enough money and doesn't worry about what an advertiser might say if he don't agree with him or whatever. And he says he feels better now, like a 25-year-old. Like he feels better than he ever has felt. And he gives Gary Brecka and this protocol that they put him on all the credit. Mm-hmm. And so the question that people need to ask themselves is, well, maybe that was just that one instance. Maybe it's just Dana White. I'm not Dana White or whatever. I want to just challenge anybody that thinks that to open their eyes a little bit, open their mind a little bit. And if you've been struggling with it for anything, for any period of time, continuing to do the same thing over and over is definitely not the path, unless you just want to just wilt away and die. Mm-hmm. I think everything that you're saying is true, and that with the environmental toxins and water, food issues that we have, chemicals and metals that we're being exposed to from all angles in our food, in our fields, in our air, in our water, we just need to figure out ways to make it better. And starting one thing at a time is the way to do it. That way, hopefully our kids have a little less of it. And I think the goal for me is that in this. So gaslighting, you in one of our conversations you'd mentioned that, and maybe we touched on that a little bit in this conversation, but I can go back into the thread. Like you had like a real problem with that. You used that term specifically, and I'm just wondering like how that has impacted you, or like how does that drive you, or how does that stop you from saying or doing something? I mean, am I on a path here, or do you know the context of that?
I can't remember exactly what we talked about. I mean, I know that I've felt that way on a number of occasions, but
you felt like people have tried to gaslight you?
I mean, I just think it's human nature, right? You're going to run into people that are going to do that. And I think that does happen a lot in positions of like professional positions where they're the expert. And so I'm not sure what I was referring to.
We're kind of trained to listen to authorities as far as if I'm a doctor in the field or whatever, you have to listen to me. And if not, you're an idiot. Mm-hmm. Kind of thing. Is that kind of
potentially? Yeah. I'm just not sure exactly what I was talking about in that situation, but I do. I mean, I know I've learned to like personally not bring up a lot of things because I know that's what's going to happen. And so if I don't feel like they have the answer for me, then I just don't ask them. I go there maybe for a physical, my annual or whatever, and then they ask me questions. And if I know that if I'm asking them a question about some way that I feel, if I know that their response is going to be like not on the same page with the way I think, then I just don't ask them. I utilize them the best way for me. That's why I value medicine. I mean, so much, but I just know that it's not always the answer. Like it's not always the answer to go to mainstream.
Yeah. That's where I want to throw some friction back at you. Is like, that's where I want to fix it. Mm-hmm. Like you as a intelligent person who does research and wouldn't offer something up or ask a question for ill intent, and like you're trying to get to the bottom of something and resonate or fix something in your head as far as I see all these things. I've read all these things. I just want an opinion, right? I feel like the doctor or authority figure that can't take a question from any level of beginner level to another doctor sitting there and asking them a question that goes against something that they might suggest. I'm like, I feel like that's where not the doctor, but the person inside the doctor needs to be a little more humble and have a little more humility to the person on the other side that's not just trying to cause conflict with them, but is maybe trying to open, like, okay, so I think this can circle back around pretty quick. All the doctors and all the scientists and all the people that have said this, and this is right, and if you're not doing that, you're wrong, you hate people, you want to kill my grandmother or whatever. Like, there's a lot of problem with that at many, many levels. It causes division. It causes people to probably not want to talk to you as much the next time. And if that's the goal of your antics, then you just want to be on your own platform and your own page, and only people in your own echo chamber, you're hearing the same things that you're saying. You know, anytime, this is what I tell my kids all the time. If you're inside a room and you're saying things and everybody's nodding their head and agreeing with you, you're in the wrong room. And I think everyone needs to take that to heart, and especially when evidence and things change, like, I think a lot of doctors need to come to grips with the fact that whether they want to admit it or not, they've been wrong. And that doesn't make them dumb. It doesn't make them a bad doctor. It makes them human. And just because someone that's not a doctor saw something through research and an intense effort that you didn't see as a doctor, again, it doesn't make you a lesser person. I think it makes you a stronger person to lean into that, and as fast as you can get there, say that I was wrong. Like, what really causes more damage and more problem is I'm looking around and looking for anyone in the mainstream to say, "Whew, that was a screw up. That was really bad." Guess what? When that person starts doing that, I'm putting them into they're going to be on my team. I'm maybe not be in the center, maybe not the starting team, right? But they're going to be on the periphery. I'm going to listen to what they have to say again. I mean, isn't that what, as a position of authority in a doctor or an expert in any field, whether it's real estate or anything? I mean, the faster you can be honest about the situation, I think it causes less friction in your life. Does it not?
Absolutely. I feel like it's hard in the medical field to admit that you're wrong about something. Because of all the things that you just said, it's not true. It doesn't make them, it makes them, to me, it makes them more credible. But I just feel like honestly, they're trained to believe that they have to have the answers. And I think I found it interesting. I heard something, I'm trying to think of the doctor. He's big on ozone therapy, but he started out I'll think of his name, or if I won't, but if I think of it, I'll send it.
Show notes.
He started out, and I found this with a lot of different doctors that end up going more into alternative type treatments. He started out in the emergency room. And so that was how he did his care. And it was when it's an emergency, it's usually something obviously life-threatening. That's why you go to the emergency room. And there's usually it's a broken bone or something you can fix the problem. You can usually fix it, not always, but usually when people go to the emergency room, it's they got cut, they need stitches, or they broke their leg, they needed a cast, whatever. So that's how he started out. And but he got tired of it though, because of the hours and everything. So he decided to open his own practice. And once he opened his own practice, he started seeing people and he could never fix them. And he said he went to somebody, I don't know, a trusted advisor. And he was like, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I what am I doing wrong? Why can't I fix these people?" And they're like, "Oh, no, it's not your job to fix them. It's your job to help them manage the symptoms." And he knew that wasn't that's not right. That's not what I signed up for. And so he went an alternative path. But so I just think that that's probably the message that they get, and that's why they practice that way. So,
well, I mean, for this particular think tank concept, I mean, I've got 7 different paths and 7 different think tanks that I'm trying to kind of ponder here. The one is like a medical umbrella, and that includes general practitioners and virologists and epidemiologists and any psychiatrist, psychologist, evolutionary biologist, anybody that can have a say in COVID 24, 30, whatever year we're on, or the next new thing that comes out that smacks humanity upside the head and gives us an opportunity to do it the same or do it better. To me, obviously, you and I know we don't even have to ask, but it's really that simple of a question. It's like, for the last 30 years, we've looked to a media apparatus to help us right the ship when things have gone wrong, or hold the right people accountable, or to ask the right questions to change the narrative that the public can then adopt. And I think, podcasts like why I started this one and why Rogan is the most viewed person on the planet, and all these other ones that are coming up, is they're asking questions that others won't ask. And whenever they ask a question, they'll dig in deeper and ask a deeper question. Or, they're quick to say, I had that person on and they were wrong, or I was wrong about how I thought that all would go. And now I've evolved and I'm over here, and here's why I'm here. You don't have to agree with me here either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you don't agree with me, give me some insight as to why you don't. And that, I'm a voracious learner and understander. And I feel like if we don't want to become this is going to sound really terrible, but I mean, if we don't want to become a dumbed down society, more so than I think we've already become at some levels, we have to look to a different path. And I don't want to be like China, where they're forcing their kids basically into militant school camps, and all they think about is school and how they're going to be the best engineers. And the reason, to me, there's a whole nother conversation to be had about the good, the bad, and the ugly of that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can love each other more and have better conversations more and be more real and authentic and be truly hoping to help the person on the other side of the table, or on the other side of the room, or on the other side of the country, like, it has to naturally come to this. I mean, I don't understand how we can look to an old system and hope for it to do better next time. And I think the reason why we're seeing all this chaos around us and all these different, climate things and wars and medical issues and all these things, the media seem to use just to distract us from having the real conversations. Because if you're worried about the war over here, then you're not going to be trying to question authority over here, and we're just going to keep doing the things and making the laws to protect our interests. And that sounds really cynical, and I'm not a cynic. I don't want to focus on that. Like, there's plenty of talking heads out there having conversations about why Biden's good or why Biden's bad, or why Trump was worse, or why he's good. I don't have any interest in any of that. All I want is for people to have a place to go get their own answers, devoid of lies as much as possible, as close to truth as much as possible. I want my kids to learn how to think critically. I want your kids to learn how to think critically. I can't control what you do with your kids. I don't want you to control what I do with my kids. But we need to have the conversations to understand why these things are important. Like, it's fundamental civics that our schools, even the best ones, I don't think teach right. Meaning, like, all these conversations that are happening out there on podcasts are really evolving humanity at a rapid rate, and AI is only going to make it faster. If we keep the traditional path of education and how we learn and how we think, we're never going to catch up. And that leaves us gullible and susceptible to bad things, and that causes more fear. Like, So if you're at least having the conversations and you're getting yourself to the cusp of where we are, you're going to be afraid of some things because there's a lot of scary stuff going on out there, but you're at least attacking it from a point where I'm like Jill, I can fix it. Or if I can't fix it, at least I can feel like I'm trying to fix it. And what always bothers me, and the reason why I want this apparatus, I can listen to a conversation with any podcaster with somebody that's an expert that I really find interesting for 3 hours, right? And then I get to the end of that conversation and I'm like, okay, what's next? Like the one with Gary Brecka is like, what do I do now? Well, now I got to go follow everything that he's saying and only what he's saying. And then I got to try to make sure he's not a guru that's selling snake oil or whatever. But then there's Jill that's over here doing this research, and she's got much more time. This is her passion place, and she's going to poke holes and find all the things. So why wouldn't I want to like recruit her on my team and have her in my network of, I know that Jill's got her eye on this, and if there's a problem, she's going to raise a red flag and say, whoop, this all makes sense except for this thing. And if I'm over here in my sphere of things and I'm not an expert on any of these things we've talked about, but I've got logic, common sense, and critical thinking, and let's work together. That way I can look at your blind side and you can look for my blind side. And we've got 30 people in the room that are all trying to get to the best answer, right? And let's remove all the obstacles. I don't know. That's rabbit hole-y, but
no, I love that. I love what you just said, because that's exactly the way I feel. It's like I recently heard somebody say, like, never stop learning and never stop unlearning. So we're like constantly, and we need, that's what we need more of. That's one of the biggest problems we have right now is if, nope, I don't agree with you. And then it becomes a fight. And that's what I think I originally said to you is I can't go there. I can't like put anything out there that might be like, think about this. And then somebody come back and wants to fight. Cause I'm really not a fight. I can fight, but I don't want to fight. That does not feel good in my body at all. And I don't want to do it. Like I've learned that isn't, I mean, I've never been like someone to start a fight. I always want to keep peace, but I can if I have to, but I don't want to.
Well, one of my favorite psychiatrists is Jordan Peterson. And he says it basic to the effect of, you want to be trained to be dangerous and lethal, but be able to control it enough because you're not being brave if you have the capability of being bad. The fact that you can contain it is actually what we need, and we don't need a bunch of people that are weak-minded out there.
It doesn't do any good. Resistance just, they're just going to keep pushing back. It's not solving anything, and I have no interest in going down that path with anyone. So, but what you said is like, can we just like talk about it? Can we just like I'll think about what you're saying. Can you think about what I'm saying? Can we then go back and do our own research instead of just like saying, no, it's my way or no way, so.
Well, I hope this conversation has opened up some pathways maybe for us and other people that are intrigued enough that say, okay, well, I've never heard of anything quite like this concept. And if anything, I want to get proven wrong fast, and I've built a lot of websites. I've built things. I'm in an industry that builds things for a living. And you want to test it to make sure that it's a good model or a good site or a good platform. Otherwise you're selling nothing. And I don't want to sell anything except for the idea behind let's build something together that we can all have ownership in and that we can be able to audit and we can be able to control, protect the data from outside influence and corruption. Let's own something together, because I feel like if you think you're part owner in it and I think I'm part owner in it, even though we're not building it to sell something, we're building it to educate ourselves and building it to educate our children and future generations. And what better way to do it? And if there's a better way right now, I don't know of it. I think AI is getting us there, but you got to be concerned about who's controlling the AI, and then you got to understand the processes behind that, which is another one of those paths we're taking. Hopefully, after this, we can both take a look at or listen to the conversation that we've had, and hopefully, you're willing to come back and have like, let's get into some topics maybe that we have already been into and get in a little deeper. Or, the gentleman I'm bringing up next is much more holistic and forward thinking, I think, than a lot of traditional psychiatrists. So my goal is to get a traditional psychiatrist in here, and not to prove them wrong, not to say you need to be more like this person, but to say, where can we work together and have trust and a path. If both of our goals is to make that human a better human, if I'm treating them, what is working, what is not working, and how can we evolve there?
Well, and I feel like there has to be a certain element in that industry as well as in the medical industry, where the doctor I was referring to that worked in the emergency room, like, he couldn't keep going down that path, because how rewarding is that to, like, never help a person really get well, but just to keep them dependent and to manage their symptoms. How rewarding. That is not rewarding. I mean, not if you're in it to help people heal, not if you're in it to do what I see you signed up for. But so to me, it's like, if a traditional psychiatrist could see the options, and like Kelly Brogan, for instance, she has peer-reviewed studies where her program has healed people, and they're on PubMed and they're published. And wow, I mean, that to me is like so rewarding. And I mean, that's why I think this isn't even my job, but it's like I get so consumed with it, because if I can help myself or help another person, it just feels so good to, like, to see that, for me. I don't know, but why, but it does for me. So, and I think, honestly, I do know why, because I think we all want to do that, really. We just sometimes, get so busy with our lives and don't stop to think about it. I've learned to manage it. Like, I don't try to just push it on people that aren't interested. My brother probably drive him crazy more than anybody, but he lets me talk. But he listens to me sometimes.
He's a patient listener. Not always a patient follower, but a patient listener.
Yeah, he's starting to follow though a little bit. So
I think you hit the nail on the head, and I just circled this thing that you said, and I think it goes just to the root of why, whenever I've spent the better part of 2 years trying to diagnose everything that's going on and come up with a battle plan to fix it as best that we might be able to fix it. The heart of this, to me, is, as a problem solver and a fixer, is you just want to know that there's somebody working on the thing out there that you trust, and they're advancing the conversation, and that they can spend every day in their professional career getting that thing a little better. And then I can just peek in or look under the hood, get a little quick synopsis of what's going on today, if I so choose to want to stay on that. You don't have to go do it yourself all the time. You got 10 people working together that are in that same vein, and then 10 people on the other side that are just poking holes in a positive way, saying, yeah, that's great, but you need people on both sides there, not just the
100%.
Everything is going to be great, because that's the guru complex, and we know that doesn't work. Take this and bite for me, and blah blah blah.
And your biochemistry is not. We're all bio individuals, so it's not like you can all take the same thing, and so
making everyone well. I mean, that's a good place to leave it. I mean, let people heal themselves. There's other people that talk about the effects of everything that's going on in society, from war to pandemic to fear, distraction, division, all these different things. But there's really no unifying message, I think, except, I don't know if you've paid any attention to Jordan Peterson, but he's got the ARC project that he's working on.
I haven't. I mean, I've followed him a lot, but I haven't.
He's over in Europe, and he's basically, what is it? The something for responsible citizenship. Basically, what he's trying to do is have conversations with all kinds of doctors, all kinds of scientists, all kinds of people from all realms of life, journalists and whatever, and having a conversation about creating an uplifting vision for the future. So as opposed to our kids, I know, are looking at things and like, I see their eyes and they're just afraid, and they're not like afraid a lion's going to jump out and bite them, which is a different thing of fear. Like the fear we face now is not that. We're insulated from things aside from a car crash, coming out and getting smashed into or getting robbed if you live in one of the cities that happened. Like we don't have to worry about tigers hiding behind a tree. It's now a more
it's the same thing.
Muted.
Your body still reacts the same
muted
way.
And it's everywhere. And it's so why are we all anxious and fearful and depressed? Because it's emanating out of everything that's being forced into our brains and everything that we're seeing and hearing. And that's alarming. So that making everyone well to me in this thing is like, give people a place to look where they can just tune out the stuff, like tune in a little bit. If you want to hear what's being said, that's kind of what I do. It's like somebody else like, oh, did you hear somebody said this? And it's somebody that we both kind of trust. I'm like, yeah, I just can't listen to all that stuff all the time. But I want somebody paying attention to it. I want that in its own think tank, getting closest to truth. I want people that are passionate about that, solving those problems. That's not where I am in this thing. I'm in my own window of space, and I'm trying to like look out the right window and not look in the wrong one that's going to put me off path for an hour because time is short. We only have so much time. But it's like the making everyone well statement, I think, for any ongoing conversation between you and me is that. And I know you, because you have like a grandkid, maybe more, or some on the way. I don't know. Who knows? Looking at it through their eyes and trying to, like, I want to interview some kids even and get my own kids in here and have conversations with them.
That'd be cool.
And just to see what's going on and how they're what do they think? Where can we go? What would make it feel better for them? And like kids going into college, what are they working for? What are they? We used to have when we were in college and going to school and whatever, like the American dream was this thing, and we were the beacon of hope, and we're all these things. And even me, who's consider myself a fairly patriotic guy, don't hate me for that, but it's like I care about the country and I care about all.
Absolutely.
But what are our kids really seeing right now? It started with COVID. Has it gotten better?
Yeah, it's scary.
It's gotten a lot worse. And they're going to be ruling this country in 30 years.
They definitely need to become more aware. I think that's the answer, is the consciousness of everyone to just be aware. Because when we can all become more aware, I think we intuitively know what's best for us. But, we have to dial that down a lot, to be able to feel that. Because if you're like too caught up in this, that, or the other thing and trying to follow like, society and like go the path that you think you're supposed to take, it's like, it's hard to dial it down to actually be clear. And that's where I think it is everyone like just becoming more universally aware, consciousness. I think that's huge.
Do you listen to Russell Brand at all?
A little bit, but I definitely listen to a lot of similar things.
Well, so it's interesting because he really is, he's bringing humor into it. And they talks about Lex Friedman, when in the beginning he talks about, I love, he say, I love you. I love all of you. And, it's that unifying, bringing together of take your politics out of it, take your color, age, sex, whatever you want to, you think you need to identify really is a category that you're placed into that really is a division box than it more than it is one soul to another soul. And like, just act like you're blind, and you shouldn't identify with anything except for being a human. And if you do, it's hard to really get around that. I want you to do what you want to do, feel how you want to feel, express yourself in however you want. I mean, I'm an arts supporter. I'm a free speech advocate. I'm a whatever. You do you, I do me. But at the end of the day, if you evolve to a point where you think humanity needs to be more together, then it's something more than that. I appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks
Yeah.
for inviting me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, until next time.
Okay. See ya.
Thanks, Jill.
You're welcome.
See you, everyone.